Hey everyone, welcome back to Elia's Style. In today's video, I'll show you how to draft a pattern and sew a denim dress with a princess seam, chest pockets, curved hip pockets with belt loops, a simple shirt collar, and basic sleeves. The pattern making section is key because once you learn this approach, you'll be able to draft patterns for most dresses with princess seams. Actually, this tutorial gives you a solid foundation for creating the dresses with similar cuts. Whether you want to make this exact denim dress or adapt it for another style, this lesson will help you master the essentials. Let's get started. To start, you can see the ease I've added to my base pattern here. I've chosen these specific ease values because I wanted a relatively fitted dress, but of course you can adjust them depending on your design. Let's begin with the front pattern. First, check the neckline measurement. It usually needs to be widened slightly. Here I've extended it by 1 cm at the shoulder neck intersection and by 2 cm at the center front. Make sure to check the armhole measurement as well. Now let's draft the princess seam. This seam is typically positioned slightly toward the neckline from the midpoint of the shoulder. So, when drawing it, make sure to leave some space from the shoulder dot. Next, connect this point to the bust point. For the lower part of the princess seam, consider whether you're happy with the waist ease or if you want to adjust it. Here, I'm keeping the waist as is, so I'm simply extending the dart points down to the waistline as part of my princess seam. The same logic applies to the hip line. If you want to maintain the same ease at the hip, you just need to distribute half of the total hem flare evenly across 6 sections of the princess seam. That's exactly how I'm marking this red line. However, in many designs, you may want to add some extra flare around the hips. If that's the case, the princess seam needs to shift slightly outwards at the hip line. How do you calculate this? It's simple. Take the difference between your desired hip circumference and the current hip measurements on the pattern. Since we're working with half a pattern, first divide this difference by 2 and then again by 4. Let me give you an example. Suppose I want the hip circumference to be 110 cm, but my current pattern measures 98 cm. The difference is 12 cm, so I divide the 12 by 2 equals 6 cm, and then 6 divided by 4 equals 1.5 cm. That means I need to shift the princess seam outward by 1.5 cm at the hip on each panel. At the hemline, I divide half of the total additional flare by 6 and add it evenly to the hem. Keep in mind that 2 of these 6 sections belong to the side seams. Hope the calculations weren't too overwhelming. There's a crucial tip for adding width at the hemline. If you're adding less than 2 cm, you can extend the hem as a straight line. But if you're adding more than that, you should use a curved line to ensure a natural flow in the final dress. This small detail makes a big difference in the final look. For the side panel, I'm adding a horizontal style line with a slight curve at the waist. Next step is drafting the front placket. I won't draw the pockets directly onto the pattern, I'll show them at actual size instead. Here's the chest pocket pattern. I've added an extra piece along the top edge for extra top stitching details which will enhance the look of the denim fabric. Extra stitching really adds to the character of denim garments. For the curved pocket with the belt loop opening, make sure to account for the belt width. I've separated the curved edge so I can sew it as a double layer piece for a clean finish. Now I'll trace the front pattern pieces. Here you can see the placket and the princess seam panels. For the piece with the shoulder dot, I need to do two things. First, close the dot, and second, mark the grain line, ensuring it stays perpendicular to the waist and hip lines. For the side panel, make sure to smooth out the princess seam over the bust point. Draw the grain line, then separate the waist seam. I've actually done this step in reverse here. That's it for the front pattern. The back pattern is simpler because we've already done all the math earlier. Before making any changes, check the neckline and armhole measurements. I've widened the neckline slightly here. Next, let's draw the princess seam. I'll extend the dart up to the side depth line. Using the front piece as a guide, I'll mark the shoulder seam placement for consistency. Then I'll draw a smooth curve to connect it to the waist dart, making sure it also passes through the end of the armhole dart. From here, the rest follows the same process as the front. Adjust the princess seam at the hip based on any additional ease needed. Extend the hemline flare as before. Draw the curve style line on the side panel. Mark the back facing. Copy the pattern pieces. Again, do not forget, if the hem flare exceeds 2 cm, make sure to measure along a curved guideline instead of adding it directly to a straight line. The final step is drawing the grain line and separating the waist seam on the side panel. For the sleeve, I'm using a basic sleeve block that I've already explained in previous videos. For the color, I'm going with a classic men's shirt color, which I've also covered before. One last thing about the dress length. If you're making a midi or full-length dress, make sure the hem flare is wide enough for comfortable movement. If not, consider adding a slit. Alright, that's it for pattern making. Now let's move on to sewing. I use medium weight navy denim for this project. For sewing, I use thicker threads commonly used for denim stitching. Start by sewing the center seams, waistline, and then the princess seams. Use flat felt seam for durability. Make sure to cut seam allowance evenly to keep them in place, ensuring clean top stitching. Align the markings carefully when attaching the pieces. Sew the front pieces together. As mentioned before, separate the curved edge and cut it twice to achieve a clean finish. Initially, I didn't plan to insert the pocket edge into the side seam, so I sewed the end of the curve. However, I later changed my mind. If you want to place the pocket edge inside the side seam, you don't need to close and sew the end. Once the pocket is complete, place it in the correct position and stitch it down. Pay attention to the area where the belt will pass through. Stitch along the outer edge of the flap. Trim the seam allowance, clip the corners, turn it right side out and press well. You can add top stitching if desired. Sew all pocket pieces using flat felt seams. Position the patch pockets on the bodies and stitch it in place. The pocket stitching is simple. Position the flap above the pocket opening and stitch along the top edge to secure it. Trim any excess seam allowance at the top edge before adding second row of stitching for reinforcement. Attach the placket to the front piece. I also added top stitching on my placket. Before joining the shoulders, make sure to sew the back facing first. After sewing the shoulder seams, prepare the collar for attachment. You can add top stitching to the collar. Trim the seam allowance, turn the collar and press it well. I stitched the back facing with matching thread so the seam wouldn't be visible. Attaching the collar, be precise. Stitch from the body side, not from the collar side. Trim the seam allowance and complete the collar. For machine stitching, baste the collar by hand and press it well. Using the markings, sew the side seams. sew the plackets and underarm sleeves. I added 2 pleats at the sleeve hem to control fullness. The most important part of attaching the sleeve is following the notches and markings carefully. Since my sleeve has minimal gathering, I can easily control it at the sleeve cape. I first baste by hand, try it on, and then stitch it with the machine. I interfaced both sides of the cuff to make it stiff and structured. You can choose to interface only one side or skip this step entirely. hem is simple. Just fold it twice and top stitch from the right side. If the placket area is too thick for your machine, trim the inner layers of the fold to reduce bulk. I interface both sides of the belt to make it stiff and firm, but this is optional. You can also use a ready-made belt instead. Sew the belt along 3 sides, leaving one side open for turning. I like to baste the seams by hand before pressing for better control. Finally, add top stitching if desired. And that wraps up today's tutorial. I hope you have fun with this project, and most importantly, that the pattern making process was clear and useful for you. Did you enjoy it? Was there a part you found particularly helpful or something you'd like me to explain differently next time? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your feedback is what helps this community grow, and I want this to be a space where we can share ideas and improve together. So don't hesitate to share your experience. And if you found this tutorial helpful, give it a like and share it with the others who might enjoy it too. Thanks for watching, and until next time, enjoy your sewing adventure.